we live our entire lives thinking everything means something about us. And it's just all of this weight and all of this concern. And when you realize that it can't, when you realize that you have no idea what any of it could ever possibly mean about you, and you know that it doesn't mean anything about the reality of you, it can only get caught up in the idea of you. It's really hard to focus on anything outside of where you're at when you recognize just how rawly uncertain everything is. Like, you don't know. And we were talking about this yesterday, just looking around my room, like everything I think has a name, like that name isn't it. And like, this desk isn't a desk. It's what is. It's reality. This light is reality. And so through that, you just kind of get shot into the present. Like, there's nowhere else you could possibly fathom being, because your mind can't settle upon something it deems to be certain.
There's a comedian, and we've actually discussed him before. We'd like to get him on the show, Pete Holmes. And he does this great bit about the fact that nothing makes any sense. And I encourage everybody to go and check it out. Pete Holmes, That Doesn't Make Any Sense. It's a very short clip, and you can find it on YouTube, and it's hilarious. But basically, he's breaking down exactly what we're talking about here, which is that science attempts to describe everything and explain everything. And the further science looks into something, the more it goes, what? Because that's the natural reaction. Like, we look at material reality, we break it down farther, we break it down farther than that. What we find is that it's all made of the same stuff that doesn't touch and somehow travels through one another. We don't see any of that happening, and most of it's quote unquote empty space. And that's it. Like, that's the whole point, is the further you look into what you think you know, the more it is very clear you don't have a fucking clue. So rather than getting into any of that, what you do is you just stop looking and you just go, yeah, that's good. That makes sense right there. And you get stuck on that level. That's why you have different types of science that have developed over time. It's because people just went, yep, that makes sense. And we're just going to stay there until some asshole came along and went, hold on, you keep looking further. And a new branch of science is born because a bunch of people are suddenly willing to look a little bit further, but then they stop again. Like, oh, that's good. Right. And it's always based on, again, how they perceive themselves. Like right now, our big issue with science as a whole seems to be the role of the observer. We cannot compensate for that. It's so hard for science to even deal with it because it's obvious that it's important. It's obvious that it's important and part of everything that must happen all the time. We have no idea how to quantify that or explain that because that's our awareness. So science is having a real issue. At some point, this conversation is going to end up coming into the scientific discussion because it has to. Because there is a whole part of our reality that we're not looking at, which is the role of the observer, the role of our awareness. You. Why are you so fucking important to existence? So important it couldn't exist without you. Things like that. So I just think it's funny that we just get to this point of assumption. We're like, no, that's good. And then we all take that for granted and go, yeah, that's accepted truth. No, that's just the comfortable truth that we've settled on because we don't want to keep looking. That's all. That's all it is. So I always find that really, really interesting. And again, it just comes down to fear because uncertainty, right? If I live in uncertainty, the only thing that I'm going to do is perceive things according to how I perceive myself. That's terrifying.